Hello, I'm back to talk about this final part of this series. This isn't it news. I want everyone here who's listening to bear in mind that this is what I've been through, and I'm still seeking answers to many things that I've been through. But I don't expect any of those answers until after I go home to be with my Savior, Jesus. I know all of you who are listening may have been through either to your knowledge or even against your knowledge some form of MK Ultra. There's different levels, but they're doing it with everybody now. So I'm going to start with one of my most darkest memories. Age 14. And I don't talk about this much, so please bear with me as I may not speak. There may be pauses in between my words. So let's begin. Like I said, age 14 was a very dark time for me. I had went to a party. There wasn't any drinking. It was mostly older people. And they really didn't have nothing to do with me. Pretty much, I'm this young 14-year-old. But a couple other kids my age were invited to it and brought me along. I was there about 2-3 hours, but I didn't click with anybody. I was oddball out. And then around the end of the party, I remember too, I don't even remember that I drank. I was just hanging out. We're all social beings. It felt good to be asked to go somewhere. And so, it wasn't my idea of a party. I'd never really been to a kid's party. But anyway, I don't want to go off track. I want to stay focused on this dark time. Well, they were doing acid. I never heard of it, didn't know what it was. I knew what marijuana was, alcohol, things like that. Even, unfortunately, the dirty magazines as a child, seeing those, God, help me now. I don't even like having those memories. So, about the end of the night, or in the party, it wasn't late, 11, 12 o'clock, I guess. Maybe later, maybe around 1. But right before I left, because no one was having anything to do with me, literally. I mean, I know why, but even the kids that asked me there didn't have anything to do with me. So, the other adults, I didn't feel strange that they weren't, but it kind of hurt my feelings that my friends that brought me didn't really hang out with me. So anyway, I don't know why I keep going on about that, because that's no big deal. The big deal is because I wanted to fit in, I went ahead and one of them offered me, I don't remember who, gave me a piece of paper and said it was acid. Like a dummy, I took it. La-di-da-di-da. I walk home. And I'm go back in my house. I go lay down, and not even 2 minutes being home. Maybe a little longer, I'm not sure, but it just happened so quick. Like it never even came to my mind what I'm about to tell you. All of a sudden, I got this thought in my head. to end my life. And I don't recall thinking about it before that night. And to this day, I still don't understand why I did it. Well, no, let me take that back. It took me till about 5 or plus years ago. I'm not sure. Within the last 10 years, I've learned about the MK. We'll call them Milkbumps. That's what they told me they were. So anyway, like I said, I was sitting up in my bed. I decided I wanted to die. So the only way I could see to do it was to take a bunch of pills. So I went and I got 2 bottles of Valiums and took them. Now, what happened after that, I can't tell you other than what I was told by my family, because I don't remember anything after that. But I do remember before I took all those pills, I said a prayer and I said, Jesus, please forgive me. Or God, please forgive me. But I remember saying that. So I took the pills and then I woke up. It was about a week and a half later. I was put in a coma. My brother, he was old enough, he drove, he was grown. And he took me to the hospital, and the hospital was, well, let me tell you one of the miracles that I'm even alive. I'm getting ahead of myself, because this is what they told me that next day was somebody came over who never comes over. No one ever come over where I was. And one of my friends down the road was, school people from school came down and was knocking on my door and for some, and would insist that, and my mom just figured I was asleep. And she'd go in there and couldn't wake me up. She's like, I can't wake her up. Come back later, which was normal for me because I sleep heavy, and sometimes I'd fake it so I didn't have to get up. But that was in the past. I didn't do that a lot. But, that's totally off. So she told me, her and my brother told me the story, and then he insisted. And then she's like, well, you go wake her up. And so he went in and he realized that I wasn't breathing. So then however long I was, it couldn't have been too long, because after that, my brother took me to the hospital, and had that guy not come and knocked on the door, I probably wouldn't be alive today. So Jesus is behind the scenes, whether we know it or not. And so anyway, it took 15 minutes for him to get to the hospital, and I was already no pulse. I wasn't breathing when he got me in the car. And they pumped my stomach and this and that and all that. And it was obvious what I had done, because I think they seen the pills. She didn't see it from the door when she looked in, but when he went over and seen, I'm sure the bottles of pills were right there next to me, and they knew then. And so, like I said, this is all what my family had told me about what happened after that. So I'm going by what they told me, and they said the doctor said that I would not come back. They said I was gone too long, because I was gone at least 15 minutes before they brought me back. And because, there's no telling how long. I probably just took my last breath when that guy showed up. Who knows? To knock on my door and insist on seeing me or talking to me. Well, anyway, before I forget, I do want to point out that acid has been used for a lot of things, for Milkbumps. Okay, so I know that had a lot to do with it that night. For one, I never had the guts. I had hopes for myself, I didn't give up on my. I wasn't in that frame of mind. I can remember clearly. I was not in that frame of mind. That was the lie the devil put in, and by use of that. So, okay, this dark part isn't over. All right? And I hope this lasts. It looks like I got 45 minutes of recording time left. So I have to get this in there because there's not much space on my phone. Sorry to break off like that. I was just checking to make sure I had enough time. My phone's getting low on storage and it'll shut off after a certain amount of time. And then once I load this, I'm going to have to delete it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So like I said, they told my mom I wasn't going to live. I was going to be a vegetable if I did wake up the rest of my life. I remember I did wake up a couple times. At least once I remember waking up during that coma period. And my pastor was there, and other people, my mom and family, and another person from the church, and they were all praying for me. So I'm very thankful I had good people in my life, you know. Excuse me. And then I went right back into it. That's one thing I do remember during that week. And then when I woke up, I had all these tubes out of me. I'm thinking, the first thing I remember waking up thinking, oh, I gotta pee. That was the first thing on my mind. And I had to pull all these tubes out of me. And then I looked over to get off of the bed, and I couldn't. I looked at it. It looked like it was a million miles down because they had it raised up so high. So I had to crank the bed down. I went down to the end of bed. I started cranking it down. No sooner I get off the bed and stand up, my mom walks in. It was a great moment. Okay, so for the next couple days, I'm still in the hospital, and they're doing these tests. They did a brain scan type thing. I'm pretty sure they mapped my brain. And they did all kinds of tests. And so 2 days later, the last day, the day before my last day at the hospital or the last day of my hospital, my doctor comes into the room. I remember him. And he looks down on my arm. He pulls my arm down because he's, evaluating, seeing how I'm feeling, how my memory is, things like that. And then he tells me and shows me my arm. He pulls down my arm, or didn't pull it down, but he says, show me your, here, let me see your arm. He's like, I want to show you something. I said, what? And he's like, you see those little bumps? And they were underneath the skin. There was nothing broken, nothing. They weren't put in there through my arm. But anyway, he said, those are milk bumps. And they were little bumps. And I could see them. You could see the raised skin. And then he said, go ahead, put your finger over them. You can feel them. I was like, yeah. He's like, those are milk bumps. He's like, they're going to start moving around, but that's normal. He's like, if you notice that happening, don't worry about it. I'm 14. I just came out of a coma. I'm not thinking about anything. Doctors, okay. I trust the doctor. Well, from there, I was sent to a rehab type place for people, it was mostly kids. Well, no sooner I got there into this other facility for troubled kids, I guess, and it was a rehab type place. I was immediately put into this room, strapped down, feet, or ankles, both my arms, out to the side, and it wasn't even a real bed. And I was so sick. I couldn't move. And they told me that I was contagious and that I couldn't be around anybody, and that's why I was being strapped down. They didn't feed me, nothing for 2 days. I don't even remember having an IV hooked up to me. And What I was told was I had meningitis. Now, this was not a hospital I was at. If I had had meningitis, why would they have let me stay there without any real care? These weren't medical doctors. These were psychiatrists. Not once did a doctor come in to that room. Okay. So the rest of the stay there was completely fine. No abuse. Everyone was real friendly. I even met a couple friends that I got along with and related well, and we hit it off. I remember all the tests that they, those psychology tests, ink blot tests. They loved those. What do you see? And anybody can make up anything, but I was just like going along, not as to fake anything. I'm 14 years old. They're trying to dig into my psyche and see what well, for one thing, that was just, I look back at it, I didn't realize at 14 what was going on, of course. But I look back at it now and everything I've learned. Some pretty crazy stuff. And I remember that after that, I was sick a lot. I get bronchitis all the time in my teen years. Okay, so after that, no need to go into, I'm breaking down the things that's out there that people don't want to believe that goes on, that really does. And it's put out there as good. It's put out there as necessary. It's put out there as a secular point of view or a cult point of view. The end justifies the means. Well, they really didn't know who they were up against, because it isn't me that's kept me alive all these years. That's why I'm not mad. I'm not mad about any of it. But let's go on. Let's go on to when I had my first child. And he was 3 months old. And I was at the hospital with him. And he's also a miracle. I seen black goo for the first time. I did not know at the time what it was. I was 19 or 18, sorry. And he was so sick that he had to stay in the hospital. And it was a good week, 7-8 days total, I think, before we came home. And I stayed with him. I remember one night, I seen all these, they looked, there was a spider web, but at the end was not a spider at all, something I'd never seen. And the first one I noticed was in the bathroom. And then when I walked out of the bathroom, they were all over. And they were crawling. I mean, I know this sounds crazy. Anyway. So I go get the nurse. I showed the nurse. The nurse looked at it too. She's like, I don't know what that is. And then really nothing was done after that. Now, granted, this is a charity hospital. I didn't have insurance, and, so they were pretty much under socialism. It was a socialism type place, but the nurses were really nice, and I don't think they were in on any of it. Usually weren't. They used to not be. They've gotten their hands on in there too. But there's a lot of good nurses left, so I ain't knocking any of them. I haven't, so I'm not trying to do that. But anyway, I remember they were everywhere. Like there had to be at least 20 of them hanging from the ceiling. But when I came back in with her, there was only one that I seen. But she got to see it too, so I felt like I wasn't crazy. There was one still in there. So she did see that. And then I caught one crawling on my son's chest, and the thing was slimy. It was not. It was shiny. Shiny black goo. And it had like little arms, and they come out and go back in. Come out and go back in. It was weird. It was just weird. I mean, it was just... This is why it was hard to talk about. Because it's like, who would believe that? But anyway, I got it off my... Well, anyway, that night, I'm sleeping in there. What am I doing? They're everywhere. I didn't think about me getting sick. Oh my gosh. That stuff didn't just make me sick. I turned into I went into a complete rage. That next day, after I'd seen those that night, I slept there, and there's no telling what got inside of me. Those things are real. I was sick for days. Me and my son were both sick. And I know now they were trying to kill us. God be the glory to you, Lord. To God be the glory to you, Lord. Oh, I'm not sure how much farther and I can get into this. It's really hard for me. This sounds crazy. Well, I lived through it. My son lived through it. And we carried on. And within 6 months later, I had another son. They didn't get him either because I was even pregnant at that time. I got super sick. I didn't even know I was pregnant when he was in the hospital. He was like 3 months. So I was already pregnant, like 1 or 2 months. One at least. And so, years went by. And I started learning about things. And then I think it was part 4. I told you that experience part 4 or 5. I told you the experience I had at the hospital when I was 6 years old. And it had been a repressed memory. And I didn't remember it for all those years. And then when I remembered it a few years ago, within the last decade, I can't pinpoint the exact year because it's been up to 2020. From 2010 to 2020 has been like a blur. Not like a blur as in I don't remember everything. It's just so much information I was learning during those years, like everything as far as what was being done to me. And it's like I've been having to process it for all these years just to be able to speak about it because it's like so out there, right? When you learn of their sorcery, and when you learn that your family is from my birth family, my ancestry, not I was adopted, so. But when I did meet my birth mother, I learned that my ancestry is Freemasons. Also, my adopted dad, he was a Shriner. And, well, I had been studying about, before I met my biological mother, I had been studying about Freemasonry. And then I met her and learned about the female side of Freemasonry, the Sisters of the Eastern Star. She brought it up. She I had asked her, I told her I was being open and honest with her. This was my biological mother. I wanted her to know who I was. So, she was getting to know me. So I was letting her know what I had been studying and was talking about the Freemasons and this and that. And she's like, oh, we're from a long line of Freemasons. And I'm like, I didn't say a word. I wasn't like, because I hadn't really, said anything bad about them. But I did learn that they have a way of finding out if you're into it or not, because they'll bring up, oh, I was invited to be a sister of the Eastern Star. Then they see your expression, which I had an expression like, it wasn't good. You can see my feelings on my face. I don't even have to tell you what I'm feeling. You can see them on my face. I've always been like, I don't, that's maybe a gift, maybe not. Maybe it's part of my, flaws. Who knows? But as soon as she's seen that, I made that, wasn't an approval face. I mean, she's like, oh, but I didn't join. And she wanted to block that out immediately, which I was fine with, but I found evidence she did later in her own. She put it right out there for me to see. She was probably hoping I'd ask about it and, be part of the sisterhood. Oh. Thank God I was already looking into it, because they do make it sound good. Oh, you can love Jesus. It's just a club type thing, not club, but they don't say it like that. A sisterhood. We look out for each other. We just do these, we get together and do these things. Well, anyway, I don't want to go on about that because I pray for them. I pray for them all. Anyone that is not aware of what Freemasonry is, it's not a club. It's not a men's club. It's deeper than that. And, I believe there are people that go in innocently with it. So learning that, and let me get to where I was just getting to. Learning that I was from that and being adopted and everything that's been happening in my life through life, and that's especially on the medical, I stopped going to doctors. It's sad because I used to think that you could trust doctors. And no. And if you found one that you can trust and is for your good, and that they're doing for best for you, then hold on to them, because there aren't many left, I'm sure. I'm scared. I'm scared to even try to trust any more doctors, especially since I had that memory flash. So, and to finalize this part 6, black goo, and it's tied in with the UFOs. I have a hypothesis about this black goo. I do believe in some way that this black goo is the fuel for these man-made UFOs and whatever else they've invented and whatever else they decide to bring about this phenomenon that they keep saying that we're, it's just the whole alien is a lie. Okay? I do need to say that. I said that, and I could tell you how I know, and you wouldn't believe me anyway. So, and I'm not going to say trust me. I'm just going to say pray about it. And if you start seeing them, sing. Sing to our Lord Jesus. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Because God has chariots too. And, wouldn't that be crazy though? that all these, they claim that these aircrafts are those, what if those are the fallen angels? And that's how they got the craft, and now they're using it. But what if, I don't know. I mean, when you look at the stars, they look like orbs, but I don't think that, I don't know where I'm going with all this, because this is really hard to talk about, because I really don't want to talk about more, because it's not going to do any other good other than I know. Okay, this is my point, which I had no idea from the beginning of making these podcasts, slash YouTube video, whatever, that this was going to be part 6. I mean, I thought it was going to be about aliens, but it turned out to be, about mind control, too. I mean, it's really, I hope that word doesn't get this taken down. Oh, isn't that crazy? We even have to worry about what we say on here. Absolutely lonely. I thought we were going forward and bringing God's kingdom in this earth. Isn't that what his kingdom is about? Well, I tell you what, just keep humble. Keep your head down low. Let those tares stand high. Pray for them. Pray for our enemies. Bless those who curse you. Jesus is the only way. Read the Word. Study the Bible. Ask him anything you want. Respectfully, of course. He is our Creator. And he loves you. But if you reject him and his Son, he will reject you. And I pray that's not you. You are meant to be more than that. You do not like rejection, neither do I. Let us not become those of that pile. May we see his face, praise him for his grace. Love is who he is, and he is coming back very soon. Give him all your praise. Praise him all day long. Give him glory. The weak will become strong. He told us all along. Maranatha, are you ready?